Hello and welcome to Manchester United, the D Unit's View. Look, I'm joining you. It's been a very busy week for Manchester United. Obviously, I did the live show when Manchester United sacked Erik ten Hag, which I totally agreed with, and I gave a bit of a preview in regards to what I expected against Chelsea. And obviously, we did have that massive win against Leicester in the Carabao Cup, which was good and definitely a positive result looking ahead and moving forward. The Chelsea game was a bit more of a reverting to the normal. Like when I was watching it last night, I was actually not too disappointed with, I'm still not disappointed too much with the result because Chelsea definitely looked like a much more improved team compared to last season. And I think a draw against them is actually quite a credible result, and that's in isolation. I think the problem here becomes when you are looking at the season we've had so far. In reality, it's just not good enough. Like Manchester United just need to be winning these kinds of games, and they just haven't been winning the games. And this is another opportunity gone. I mean, this is now officially the worst start to a Premier League season. We're 10 games in. 10 games in and we've got 12 points. It's hard to believe. We've had 3 draws and 3 wins in 10 games. We've lost 4. That's just not good enough for a club of Manchester United's stature. And look, this can't be placed on Ruben Amorim. He's literally the caretaker manager. And we'll get into the game itself in a little bit. But I want to talk about Ruben Amorim. Because, my God, he's got a lot of work to do here. And I don't know where he starts and what he can be expected to do. Look, Sporting Lisbon, generally speaking, play in a 3-4-3 formation. And Manchester United, I actually can't remember us ever playing with a 3-man defence. I feel like potentially we did it under Louis van Gaal for a bit. But it's definitely not something that's been a popular decision. I feel like maybe even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wheeled it out a couple of times, potentially. But I just don't think... it's hard to know whether the squad suits it. I feel like Delo would be a really good wing back, but I feel like potentially Ahmad might be a better one going forward. Ahmad, I think, has got a good work rate as well. It's going to be interesting to see what Amorim does. First off, we just need to see... I think the expectation this season is, look, we're 10 games in. It's been an absolute shit show to begin the season. And I think all we can expect moving forward is better football. And hopefully an implementation of some sort of style that we can get behind, that we can see developing. Because for all Erik ten Hag did, there was never a succinct style about how he wanted his teams to play. And I think that was the main problem with ten Hag's tactics. He just didn't seem to have an idea about how to progress and win games of Premier League football consistently, let alone in Europe. Because, I mean, his record in Europe with Manchester United is god-awful. It's actually atrocious, his European record. Other than that first season where they beat Barcelona and probably should have got to the final, the season of the Champions League was an absolute one to forget. And they had an easy group as well. Let's not be kidding ourselves. FC Copenhagen, Galatasaray and Bayern Munich should not be a group where you finish last. And he somehow managed to finish last. We've played 3 games now in the Europa League and we haven't won any of them. Again, it's just not good enough, really. Considering the calibre of the teams in the Europa League, Man United should be... There's a reason why them and Tottenham are the joint favourites, because the teams in there aren't actually that... They actually aren't that good. But look, so there's lots of cover. I don't know where he starts. I don't know how much money is actually going to be available. PSR is definitely a problem. And you look at the summer spending and... were they Ineos signings? You could argue that Manuel Ugarte is, and he knows about Ugarte because Ugarte's played in the Portuguese league. So you'd think that hopefully Amorim's going to get the best out of him. Then obviously Lenny Yoro, who we haven't seen at all. You could see him, how he lines up in a back 3. You could see a back 3 of Lenny Yoro, Mateus de Ligt, and Lisandro Martinez. I'm just not sure how mobile that... Other than Yoro, the other 2 I'm not sure how mobile they are. And I'm not sure how that's going to affect the way he wants to play. It's like one of them weird ones. Like a 3-4-3 formation is very different to what has been being played by Erik ten Hag the last 3 years. What's actually happened to Manchester United the last 10 years, let alone the last 3. It's going to be interesting. I hope it works. I can't wait for him to actually get started. He's young. He's 39. I don't think we've actually had a younger manager that I can ever recall. That I remember. I feel like potentially probably 80 years ago there was one. You have to let me know in the comments if you can name one. But I think that's exciting. I mean, the dude's 1 year older than me. and he's taking charge of the biggest club in the footballing world, which I think is absolutely amazing. I think it's really good. So, I mean, I'm intrigued to see what he does. The Portuguese connection makes you think that Dalot's going to feature quite heavily, but you would think that moving forward that it's only going to be either one of him or Mazraoui that takes that position, and maybe Mazraoui, you could arguably say, has been the signing of the summer of the 5 that we've made. He's the one that's hit the ground running the best, and he's just looked a model of consistency. Like, I think the commentator during the Chelsea game referred to him as a steady Eddie. And he has been. He's been very solid defensively. I think he's been quite fantastic, and I'd like to see a bit more from him going forward. But, you know, he's been solid defensively, and I think that's your main job as a defender. Just make sure you don't allow attacks to come down your side of the field. And, yeah. So, look, Amorim's got a job to do. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be fascinating because, obviously, Ruben Amorim is in charge until the international break. Ruben Amorim comes in on the 11th of November, I believe, at the start of the international break. They've agreed a deal with Sporting Lisbon to release him. He's come out and said he didn't really want to leave during the mid-season, but, you know, it was either now or never. And, yes, it is now or never. We couldn't sit there and allow this to carry on for like the rest of the season. I mean, if he'd not come now and Ruud van Nistelrooy had got on a bit of a winning run, the clamour would be there to do what they did with Ollie, and that is to make him permanent. And like, I love Ruud van Nistelrooy. I would love to have actually seen him as manager in the summer. I would have loved to have just seen him replaced, but he just doesn't have the experience yet. He's only managed PSV for about a year. So like, he doesn't have like that much top flight management type thing, and that was in the Dutch league as well. So, you know, he's still obviously got a bit to learn, but my God, he does look the part out there, and he looks very fashionable on the touchline. Yeah, it's great to look at. Let's put it that way, because obviously Erik ten Hag looked a bit weird on the touchline, whereas Ruud van Nistelrooy has that sort of aura about him. He just looks good on the touchline. He looks like a manager. Yeah, and like, you could see the passion in him during these 2 games that we've had so far. The passion that's been displayed by Ruud van Nistelrooy has just been absolutely fantastic, and I think that's something that he's going to cherish for the rest of his life, managing, even if it's just for these 4 games, and then he leaves. I just don't understand what the plan is. So Ruben Amorim's basically bringing his entire backroom staff from Sporting Lisbon. All these coaches and everything is coming from Sporting Lisbon. So it makes you wonder what's going to happen with the coaches that obviously United bought in the summer. So René Hake was brought in, Ruud van Nistelrooy was brought in. There was a few other changes. Like, do they all just get made redundant now and shown the door? Or does Ruben Amorim think, oh, actually Ruud van Nistelrooy is a club great. He's obviously, but like, then the role would have to be right for Ruud van Nistelrooy, because he's not going to sit there and just be like some pleb doing, you know, the forwards training. He wants to have a bit more of an input. He came as the assistant manager to have that kind of input on the squad. So I think the role's got to make sense for him, and it's also got to make sense for Amorim. And I don't know if the marriage is going to be there. It was a bit like when Ten Hag came in and he really had no interest in working with Ralph Rangnick. I think this could potentially be the same sort of thing, but I hope that they do. I hope that Ruben Amorim comes in and goes, my God, yeah, I think you'll be great to have around, and Ruud van Nistelrooy stays, because I think that'd be really good, particularly for those young strikers, learning your craft or honing your craft when you've got one of the all-time great goal scorers there teaching you can only be a good thing. But it'll be interesting, because obviously, as we saw when Ten Hag was under pressure, you know, they've got Ruud van Nistelrooy. So like, if Ruben Amorim doesn't get off to a good start, does the clamour then become, well, Ruud van Nistelrooy is still there. He's done a good job in the caretaker role for the 4 games, provided he wins the next 2, obviously, against PAOK and then Leicester later in the game week. But that's something to keep in mind. And I think that, yeah, definitely something that needs to be thought about. And while we're on that, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And look, I have been trying to get on here every time before there's been some Manchester United news, after games and stuff. However, I am going to Singapore this week on holiday for my partner's 30th. So I will not be doing any shows at all until I'm back. Potentially next week during the international break, I'll definitely do a show to catch up on the games that I've missed. But I'll be watching them, but I just won't be able to do a video on my thoughts and opinions on them, because of the fact I'm going to be on holiday. And then I'm going, as part of my job, on Year 6 camp the week after. So it's a busy couple of weeks for me, but I will still be watching the team. I'm probably going to have some very late and sleepless nights. But yeah, look, Ruben Amorim, it's exciting. I can't believe this is the most efficient I can remember Manchester United being since before when Ferguson and David Gill were in charge. They have not mucked around here. They have come out after the West Ham game. Obviously, they'd pre-organised the Ten Hag. That was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't the worst performance. And they just moved decisively, moved him on, got rid. And then they've had a plan and they've enacted it super quickly. So that way there's not speculation about whether Ruben Amorim is going to stay in the job long term if he wins a couple of games. I think that's been a very good call by Ineos. And it shows that, that they do have that ruthless streak. I mean, I always thought Sir Jim Ratcliffe must have a ruthless streak. You don't build a chemical empire and become a really rich billionaire by not making savvy and probably at times ruthless decisions in business. So Manchester United are his new business, and I'm not surprised that Erik ten Hag has been shafted and that they've moved quickly to identify the success that they want to bring in. And you just got to hope now that it works. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is they get it wrong and the 3-4-3 doesn't happen, but it looks like Ruben Amorim's a bit of a clever cookie. I think that he's going to adjust to what Premier League football is. The only caveat we've got is that it's another up-and-coming manager like Ten Hag was, but from an inferior league, like a Tier 5 league. Like the Portuguese league's probably slightly better than the Dutch league, but it wouldn't be by much. And that's the problem. It's they're still an unknown quantity. Are they going to work now? Jose Mourinho came from Porto and worked amazingly at Chelsea, so there's no reason why it can't be done. And Arne Slot has taken a life at Liverpool from the Dutch league this year like a duck to water. So it's definitely possible. So we just got to hope that it's our turn to finally have some luck with a managerial appointment, and hopefully this is the start of something fresh, something new, and the fans are going to get up and about. The atmosphere was, I don't know, it was a bit weird on Sunday against Chelsea. It was the Leicester game was amazing. The ground was, it helped with the early goals. And the Chelsea game was an interesting case in point. And we'll get into it. I suppose that's the best place to start now. We'll hop over here. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to have a look at a few of the stats and have a talk about the actual game itself. So the game finished 1-1. Bruno Fernandes took the lead for Manchester United in the 70th minute after Rasmus Højlund was adjudged to have been fouled by Robert Sanchez in the Chelsea goal. I was about to say Brighton goal because that's where he used to play for. In the Chelsea goal, definitely got him. It was a definite penalty. VAR didn't overturn it, and the referee gave it on the spot off the original call. Bruno Fernandes stepped up and sent Robert Sanchez the wrong way, and we took the lead. Unfortunately, he didn't hold the lead again for very long, and it was only 5 minutes. It was actually less than 5 minutes, I think. And Moise Caicedo on the edge of the box just plucked the ball pretty much out of the air and hit it first time. And it didn't really give Andre Onana any chance to really get down to save it. So look, that finished 1-1. I mean, the game itself was actually fairly even. It's just disappointing, and this is, I think, what Amorim will probably want to try and install is Man United playing further up the pitch and being on the front foot. This season alone, we just have to look at the games at home, and it's been relatively subdued, like we're playing on a counter-attack at home. So we have Fulham start of the season, first game of the year, where we played fairly well. We definitely took it to Fulham, but then it became a bit chaotic towards the end. Liverpool, we got trounced. Tottenham, at home, we got trounced. Then obviously had the Brentford game where, the first half was a bit dicey, and then the second half they came full guns blazing back. And then we've had this game against Chelsea, and this game was definitely a lot more, subdued in terms of the way we were moving. There was quite often people playing passes backwards, not wanting to take risks. And I don't know if that's a fact that we've just been in poor form in general, and maybe that's just the players just not wanting to take too many risks and not wanting to make those mistakes. But it is definitely something that is concerning moving forward. So Man United versus Chelsea, this is how the main stats broke down. So possession, we only had 46% possession at home. Chelsea had 54%. It was a pretty even game in terms of that. The total shots were very even, 11-12 in Chelsea's favour. However, the shots on target were in our favour, 4-3. And Garnacho again was quite wasteful. We'll get to that in a little bit. Total passes, Man United 405, Chelsea 475, of which 322 were completed by ours and 397 for Chelsea. Tackles, very even again. Man United 13, Chelsea 11. And aerial duels won. Chelsea won a lot more. Probably a sign that they're actually quite good defensively in the air. And look, these are the lineups. So there was no real surprises there from Ruben Amorim. He literally picked the same team that beat Leicester, other than the fact that he dropped Xerxes and Rasmus Højlund started up top. Otherwise, it was a completely unchanged lineup from what started against Leicester City. Chelsea had Robert Sanchez, Gusto, Fofana, Colwill, James, Caicedo, Lavia, Madueke, Palmer, Pedro Neto, and Jackson. One real positive here is that Cole Palmer was a pretty quiet player in general for this game. And that's interesting in and of itself because last season he tore us apart and he was just very dominant for Chelsea last year. This year, in this game, particularly at Old Trafford, he didn't have very much influence. He was quite subdued, and Man United, on the whole, marshalled him pretty well, I thought. So some of the positives can be taken from this game. Well, the defence on the whole played pretty well. Matthias de Ligt had a few wayward moments where he allowed balls to bounce. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. Garnacho switched off towards the end of the game, which led to Casemiro getting a booking and Casemiro dishing out a bit of a walloping to him. Ugarte made a series of fouls after he got carded in the second half, which is why he was replaced by Victor Lindelof, which was an interesting substitution. But when you looked at our bench, there was actually no central midfielders on the bench with any experience. So we had Jack Fletcher and Jace Fitzgerald, who were great to see them on the bench, but I don't think they were ever likely to come on. But they are the only ones that were their normal natural position as playing midfield. Diallo again started on the bench. He came on for Rashford in the 73rd minute. I didn't think they were too bad. Xerxes again looked pretty lackluster when he came on. Bruno Fernandes actually played an amazing ball to get him through in on goal. However, he just did nothing. He just looks slow. He definitely looks a bit slow for the Premier League. I'm not sure that he's going to make it here, to be honest with you, moving forward. Yeah, so look, well, Ruud van Nistelrooy had a few things to say. I'm going to go down and read out a couple of the things that he said. He's hoping for a midfield boost. So Christian Eriksen, Kobbie Mainoo both missed this game. Mason Mount's still injured as well. He is hoping that they will be right for the 2 games this week, but we'll have to wait and see. But he is hoping to welcome him back. But yeah, look, I was surprised. I thought that maybe Harry Mass might have been brought on. Like he might give a debut to one of the kids. Maybe he still will against PAOK in the Europa League. We'll just have to wait and see. I think he really just wants to win, to be honest. Anthony apparently is also still injured, but that's not really any loss at this particular point in time. Yeah, and I feel like, and Ruud basically just came out and said it's been an emotional roller coaster. Monday to today has almost been a full week where so many things happen, and my task was to steady the ship and to get results coming. I think the players reacted good on Wednesday and today, and it's something to build on for the next 2 games. Now, something interesting to note is that Roy Keane wasn't overly happy with Ruud van Nistelrooy's comments and basically called Man United boring and pretty average at every part of their football. And, you know, it's hard not to agree with a lot of what Roy Keane had to say. Man United have become quite boring to watch. They quite often start the games as underdogs, and I don't think that is something that we should ever be aspiring to, considering the size of the club. The fact that we having to concede that we are not the favourites in games is just a galling stat in and of itself. And like the other teams are going so much better than ours. And like Ruud's been talking about, you know, the goals will come and stuff like that. And I think the goals will come. I think the problem is we have so much... such a big lack of experience in the forward line that, you know, Garnacho in particular, like if he was more clinical or more decisive with his end product or his final shot, I feel like we would have won quite a few more games this season. We've just had games where we've just, I don't know, where we've deserved to win, as Mazraoui said after this game, but just didn't take the chances that we created. And it's becoming a problem for not only the players, but it's going to become a problem for Ruben Amorim when he shows up as well. Like, I don't know what the magic bullet is to try and get this team scoring goals, but it's something he's going to have to try and figure out ASAP. So, yeah, there you go. I believe the women's team played Arsenal, and they finished 1-1. So that was the ladies' team have actually been playing really well. I mean, Arsenal are meant to be one of the favourites for the league this year, and the fact that they drew is pretty good. The youth teams have been going pretty well as well, so that's also good. It's just a shame we can't get the first team up and firing, but hopefully we do moving forward. And look, let's just check out what Ruben Amorim is all about. So he's one of Europe's brightest coaches. This is basically what's written on the website. So I'm just going to read it out. He's forged a reputation as one of Europe's brightest coaches while still only in his 30s, having guided Sporting back to the top of the Portuguese game during an impressive 4 seasons in Lisbon. He's actually won the league there twice, and it was the first time in 19 years when he won it the first time that Sporting Lisbon had actually won the Portuguese league. So that's an impressive stat. Employing a dynamic, team-orientated system, he was fast-tracked to Sporting and achieved great success with the Lisbon Giants. After a playing career spanning Belenenses, Benfica, Braga and Al Waqa, he was forced to retire at the age of 32. Nonetheless, he still played 4 times against United in the Champions League, including twice at Old Trafford, where he will now occupy the touchline. That's an interesting stat for you. Amorim also represented Portugal at 2 World Cups, making 14 total appearances for his country. Determined to make his mark in the world of coaching, he started out at a lower division, Cassiopeia, and even spent time at Carrington to pick the brains of then United boss Jose Mourinho, one of his inspirations in the field. His grasp of English was also aided by completing some of his UEFA coaching qualifiers in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So that's good. That means he's going to be able to come in and be a good communicator because he can actually speak English. And obviously it's going to be very good for the Portuguese-speaking players in the squad as well, because obviously he's going to be fluent in both languages. So I feel like he's already onto a bit of a winner there, whereas Erik ten Hag definitely seemed to struggle to communicate with his players. And I think that probably because English wasn't his strongest language. All right, so Amorim switched to Braga and after replacing Ricardo de Cinto at the helm, set about a remarkable transformation of the team's fortunes. In early 2020, it led them to Taça da Liga success with a 1-0 victory over FC Porto in the final. The Cup triumph obviously enhanced his growing reputation in the league. He won 8 of 9 games. Sporting were convinced of his qualities after just 13 games and paid the significant release clause to bring him to Lisbon. The faith in Amorim played off. After nearly 2 decades being pipped to the post by rivals Benfica and Porto, Amorim guided Sporting to a first Portuguese title in 19 years in 2020-21. His side suffered only 1 league defeat across the campaign, and that came after the historic title had already been wrapped up. That's bad. The Leos, I don't know how you say that word, finished runners-up the following season and reached the UEFA Champions League last 16. Despite then losing some key players, he managed to oversee a Europa League victory over Arsenal in a penalty shootout in 2023. With a rebuilt side, Amorim secured his 2nd league crown and Sporting's 20th Premier League title just last season with a 10-point margin ahead of second-placed Benfica. To date, 9 wins out of 9 and a goal difference of 30-2 has ensured Sporting are favourites to retain the championship. That record only builds on the consistent levels Amorim has achieved in the Portuguese capital. I mean, it's good. It's obviously he's shown over a consistent period of time that he can manage a team. And to sustained success from a position where he wasn't starting at the top. So since March 2020, when Amorim took charge, Sporting have the highest win percentage, 77% of any team across Europe's top 10 leagues, as per Opta stats. Now, however, Amorim is heading to Old Trafford for a new challenge where we don't have a very good win percentage at all. Here in Manchester, he'll link up with Manuel Ugarte, one of the many young talents across the European game who he helped to develop in Lisbon. Others include Mateus Nunes, now at Man City, Nuno Mendes of PSG, and João Palhinha, who left Fulham for Bayern Munich last summer. With a group of high potential young players at United, fans can rightly be excited at what lies ahead for them under Amorim's tutelage. And look, that is the exciting thing. He has shown during his time at Sporting Lisbon that he likes and enjoys working with youth. And I think that's going to be very important for Manchester United moving forward, because we are a club that prides ourselves on having, you know, the youth coming through from the academy and giving them a chance. Like we've had the Busby Babes. We've had the class of 92, sorry. So that's what we need to do. Focus on forward. And I think he does tick a lot of the right boxes. I don't think there is a perfect coach out there. And it is a massive job. And the distinct thing that needs to be taken on board here is that he hasn't been named the new Manchester United manager. He has been named the new head coach. I think this is the first time ever we've ever had a head coach instead of a manager. I mean, everyone's still going to call him the manager and the boss, but technically his role is now the head coach. His role is purely to do the coaching of the team. Get them on the same page, get them working together cohesively as a team, and hopefully that means we'll start getting some results. That's all we can ask. That's all we can expect moving forward. I really like the appointment. I think it shows boldness by Ineos and decisiveness with how quickly they've acted in this particular method, and I'm excited for him to join. But in the meantime, look, hopefully we get 2 wins from 2 in the remaining 2 games under Ruud van Nistelrooy. I'd love for him to go undefeated in his 4-game caretaker stint. And I really do hope that they can find a place for him in Amorim's coaching setup moving forward. But we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. Good luck to all the Reds out there. Hopefully you'll enjoy the next couple of weeks with Amorim and the changes afoot. It should be exciting times, and we'll be here for it. And I'll be back when I'm back from holiday to cover the games this week against PAOK and obviously at home to Leicester City in the league before the international break starting next week. All right, thanks for joining. That's been Manchester United, the D Unit's view. Thanks for joining.